Hello everyone, welcome to this session. My name is Nupur Gupta and I am the co-lead of the open source Eclipse Java Development Tools project. I work as an advisory software engineer at IBM Software Labs in Bangalore, India, and I'm a member of the ECM Future of Computing Academy. So for today's session, we know that Eclipse IDE provides us a lot of powerful features and capabilities, and with so much functionality at our disposal, we are not able to utilize the full potential of the IDE. And to be productive, mastering your source code is as important as mastering your IDE. So in today's session, I would like to share with you some invaluable tips and tricks which will help you in being more productive in your routine development tasks, and I will provide you a glimpse of the tooling features that are provided by Eclipse as part of its support for the new Java and JUnit versions. So let's get to the demo. So I will be stopping the video now, and I request all of you to double click on the screen which is being shared so that you can view the Eclipse IDE in the maximized mode. And I have also provided the link for the slides in the chat session. So you can just sit back and relax and enjoy the tooling features in Eclipse IDE. So first, some tips to improve the appearance of the content in your IDE. So if you go to Window Appearance menu, you have the option to toggle full screen mode in Eclipse. And for mainly for presentations, but also for learning purposes, it is useful to show the key bindings when a command is pressed. So you can enable that using this option to toggle the show key bindings. Then you can zoom in and zoom out of the text editors using Control plus and Control minus commands. And if you have a device that is touch enabled, then you can also use the pinch gestures to zoom in and zoom out. Then it is a good practice to organize your projects into working sets. So like you can see, I have done here for my demo projects. So because these working sets provide you another scope that you can see and use in various locations, like in the search dialog. Now, within our projects, we have packages which usually have a common prefix. So in order to save some screen space and for better readability, you can go to the appearance preferences under Java, and you can abbreviate these package names. So for example here, when I apply this, you can see that the org eclipse JDT package names on the left, they have changed to JDT, and these will be shown like this at other locations in the UI as well. With this, let's move on to some navigation tips. So navigation in Eclipse is based on key bindings and shortcuts, and the most useful one is Control 3, which is called for find actions or quick access. So whatever comes to your mind, just start typing here, and you will see the results from various different categories of UI elements being listed. So you don't need to go through all the menu options and preferences to find something. You can just look for it using Control 3 first. Now, when you have to look for an element within a file, you can either use the common Control F dialog, say to search for eval, but you can be smarter and you can press Control O to invoke the quick outline. And here you can easily filter and jump to the desired element in the file. Now, if you want to see the Java doc of an element, you can just hover on that. And if there is an element which has an error or a warning on it, then if on hovering, you see the problem message instead of the Java doc. So in this case, if you still want to view the Java doc of this element, you can press Control Shift and then hover on it to see the Java doc. Similarly, if you want to see the source code of this element, then just press Shift and hover on that to see an in-place declaration of this element. Now, when we are working, it's very common to navigate to different source code locations, say when you are searching for something. And now at this point, if you want to quickly go back to the location where you were editing, then what you can do is just press Control Q, and it will take you to the last location where you were editing, and you can continue the editing. You can also use Alt left and Alt right keys to navigate backward and forward in the navigation history. During this, if you find some location that you want to revisit later, you can just bookmark it in Eclipse like you do in your web browsers. So right click and say add bookmark and give it a name. After this, you can go to the bookmarks view where you can manage all these bookmarks and double click and navigate to these saved locations. Then to search for anything in your Eclipse IDE, you can make use of the search dialog using Control S, which has a lot of fine grained options like to search for references. But if you're searching only for some text within your IDE, then you can also use the quick text search dialog, which you can invoke using Control Alt Shift L option. And here, as you type, you will see the results being popped up in the bottom. And when you select one of these results, you can also see a quick preview at the bottom pane. So, with this, we will move on to some investigation tips. These tips can help you in retrieving some hidden information which is present in your IDE. So, for example, if you want to find out how something is implemented in Eclipse, you can make use of plugin spies. Say, for example, you want to know the implementation details of Package Explorer, then just click on that and press Alt Shift F1. You will get to see all these details, and you can also click on these hyperlinks like on this view class to open that file in the Eclipse IDE. Similarly, if you want to know the implementation details of a menu item or a toolbar item, then you can press Alt Shift F2. So on the left, you can see that the cursor has changed. And now if you click on any tool bar item or a menu item, then you can see its implementation details. Next is if you want to see all the images which are present in your IDE's workspace or the target platform, then you can make use of the plugin image browser view. Here you can also filter these images based on their name or path. And when you select an image, you will see more details about it at the bottom pane. Now we all work with externalized strings. So these are the strings which are translated into different languages for internationalization, and they are present as key value pairs in the properties files. So here, if you want to know where a particular string is being used in the source code for debugging or for any other purpose, then you can just control click on its key in the properties file, and it will show you all the locations where this key is being used. You can also double click on a location and directly navigate to that location where the externalized string is being used. Now, in your source code, if you want to determine who last modified a line of code and when, then you can make use of this feature to show the revision information. So this is applicable when you have installed eGit because all this information is fetched from the commits history. So if you go back here, you can see under revision, you have more options like you can choose to show the author name or the commit ID, and you can use the combined coloring. So a darker color will represent something which was committed more recently. And when you hover on these annotations, you can see more information like the changes, the commit message. And at the top, you have these hyperlinks using which you can directly open this commit in a commit viewer, or you can show it in the history view. And when you want to close this information, you can just go and say hide revision information. Now, suppose you have a stack trace which you find from a log file or from any bug report, then one thing which you can do in Eclipse IDE is you can just paste it anywhere using the shortcut Control Shift V, which is a shortcut for the open from clipboard command. And now if you see, you can find out these hyperlinks and you can just click on them and navigate to the location from where that exception occurred. Here you also have a hyperlink on the name of the exception. So if you click on that, then Eclipse IDE can create an exception breakpoint for you where the debugger will suspend the execution whenever this exception is thrown or caught. So with this, let's move on to some coding tips. The most commonly used shortcut in Eclipse IDE is control space, which is used to invoke the content assist. And the default behavior of content assist is to insert the proposal like this. But if you want it to override the existing proposal, override the existing text, then you can use the control key. So now when I press the control key, you can see that the text which will be overwritten is highlighted. And when I press enter, then you can see that it has overwritten the existing text. So another useful feature which is presented along with Content Assist is the templates. And so templates provide you an easy and quick way to insert some common boilerplate code. And Eclipse provides a lot of built-in templates. For example, you have the main method template, and say you have this private template to create a private method. And Eclipse also provides postfix templates, which you can enable in the advanced properties of Content Assist. After that, on args, if I say for, it will create a for loop for me. And on S, if I invoke var, a postfix template, it will create a variable for me. And S2, after that, if I'm using sysout template, then it will enclose it in a print statement. So after the templates and Content Assist, you would have noticed that in Eclipse IDE, the Content Assist pop-up comes up either when you press a dot or when you invoke it explicitly using control space. But if you want it to be activated at every key press, then you can do so in the preferences. So let me just copy these all these small and capital letters and go to the content assist preferences. So to do that, you have to specify all the characters that you want to use as the activation triggers. And here, let me paste these small and capital letters in the in this box. And you have to also enable this checkbox to disable the insertion triggers except enter. So this will allow you to insert the proposals only when you press enter, and they will not be inserted unexpectedly. So after this, if I type anything, you can see that without pressing control space or without typing a dot, I am getting the proposals in this. I am getting the content assist pop-up activated. Now, next, I want to talk about code minings. So, code minings provide some information about your code, and they are shown as decorative text in the editor. So, you can enable code minings in the preferences here. You can see the references and implementations are enabled. So, to give you the demo, let me open an interface. You can see these code minings are being shown at the top of this interface. And the code minings can also be interactive. That is, you can click on them and perform various actions. So if you click on implementations, it opens the type hierarchy view. And if you click on references, it launches the search for references. Then say, let me give you this example. If you have a single reference, then you can also do a control click on that and it will directly take you to the referencing location. So now let's consider this constructor, which is taking three strings as parameters, but it is difficult to tell that which string is being passed to which parameter. So if you want to know that information and you want it to be present directly in your IDE, then you can go back to the code mining preferences and enable this option, show the method parameter names. With that, you can see the names of these method parameters directly in your editor. And once you are done with these, you can just go back to these preferences and click on these restore default buttons to get back to. Next, if you want to edit a large number of almost identical lines, then Eclipse provides a block selection mode, and the shortcut for that is Alt Shift A. So with the help of that, I can quickly convert these fields into private final fields in the block selection mode. So this was about coding. Now let's move on to some debugging tips. So the first one is about smart step into. So this is useful when you have a series of chained or nested method calls like this, and you want to directly step into a particular method in this. So let me debug this for you. Now when the breakpoint is hit, say I want to directly go to the third method. So I can press Ctrl F5 and it will directly take me to that third method which I desire. Now if I debug it once again, you can see the breakpoint is hit at line number 8. And say I want to go to line number 12. Then you can just right click and say run to line. So this feature is useful when you are debugging and you want to jump to a particular line without adding a breakpoint at that location. So now when we are using a workspace for a long time, we usually accumulate a lot of breakpoints. So in the breakpoints view on the right, you can see you can go to the settings and you can sort them based on creation time to see the most recently created breakpoints at the top. And you can also group them based on different categories for organizing them in a better way. Say, group them in projects. And then you also have the option to create breakpoint working sets. So this is useful when you are, say, working on a particular bug and you want all the related breakpoints to be present in a single working set. So after this, when you go and group by the breakpoint working sets, you will see that now you get an option to directly enable or disable these breakpoints in a single step, and you can also delete them once the bug is done. Similarly, you can also import and export these breakpoints and share them with your teammates using these context menu options to import and export. Now, after this, let's talk about a trace point. So, what is a trace point? So, a trace point is a point in code where the debugger does not suspend the execution, but it only prints to the console. So, you can create a trace point by going to run and saying toggle trace point. Now, if you open its properties, you will see that it is just a simple conditional breakpoint and which is having a print statement. And you can modify this print statement as well. So let me debug this class. This time you saw that the debugger did not suspend the execution at this trace point, and the print statement has also printed to the console. So you can use this feature to prevent the addition of unnecessary print statements in your code when you are debugging. And you can also use it to see the order of execution of threads or to debug the race conditions in your source code. So after trace point, let's move on to trigger points. So to simplify the things, say we have a breakpoint here like this, which can be accessed from three different scenarios. That is S1, S2, and S3. But you are interested in this breakpoint only after S2 has occurred. So for that, at S2, you can create a trigger point. So for that, you just create a normal breakpoint first, and then set it to be a trigger point here. So once that is done, let me debug this. So now you can see that when S1 occurred, our breakpoint was not hit. And now when the trigger point at S2 has been hit, then if I resume, our old breakpoint is being hit at S2 and S3 as well. So in simple words, a trigger point is a breakpoint which disables all other breakpoints and until that particular trigger point is hit. And you can have multiple trigger points in your workspace and they can be used for a lot of different purposes. So when you are done with the trigger points, you can just remove all of them using this context menu option to remove all triggers. So these were some debugging tips. Now I will move on to some tooling features which have been added to support the new Java versions. Before that, let me quickly take a look at the chat and see if there are any questions or comments. Okay, so I don't see any questions for this at this moment. So I will continue with the demo of the Java tooling features. So just a general tip before that. So say you have a code snippet like this. So what you can do is you can just paste it anywhere in the package explorer and Eclipse will create a project by default for you and it will open that snippet in a Java editor. So you can use this feature to quickly try out new language constructs from various blogs and articles. Now let's move on to Java 14. Java 14 introduced records as a new preview feature. And a preview feature is disabled by default in a project. So first, let us enable the preview features on this. You can do that by selecting this option. And when you are using a preview feature in the code, you can choose to see a warning or an info. Or if you want, you can just ignore these problem severity using this option. Now, after you have enabled the preview features, you can create a record in this Java 14 project. So for that, Eclipse IDE provides you a new wizard. So let me create a record with the name square and let me add a record component called as side. Now with this, let me run this class which is using the record which I have created and let's see what we get for free. So in the bottom, you can see that we got a toString method and then we got one accessor method and we also got the equals and hash code methods which were auto generated with these record instances. Now going back to this record, if you rename this component in the workspace from side to S, you will see that Eclipse IDE updates all its references and it also updates the accessor method for you. So after records, the next one is text blocks, so which received a second round of preview in Java 14. So you can create a text block by enclosing any string within triple quotes. And Eclipse IDE helps you in this by providing a new shortcut called as Control Shift Apostrophe. And you can use the same shortcut after selecting an existing string and it will enclose that string into these triple quotes so you can create a text block quickly. Then next is the switch expressions which have been promoted to a standard feature in Java 14. So take a look at this switch expression here, which is having the error that it should cover all possible values in its case statements. So this can be solved by adding a default case or by adding the missing case statements along with the default, and Eclipse provides you quick fixes for both of these. So now when I select one of these, then you can see that the values are inserted in linked mode so that you can quickly replace them with the desired value that you want. Now, in this case statement, if you see, there are multiple labels which are present here, and Eclipse IDE provides you a quick assist to split these case labels so that you can provide different values to them when you need. So, and then if your switch expression is getting too long, you can also control click on the default and case keyword to quickly jump to the beginning of the switch expression here. So with this, let's move on to the var support, which was added in Java 10 and 11. So when you are extracting a local variable, you have this option to declare the type of the local variable as var. And when I do that, you can see the local variable is declared as var. So if you want to see the type which is actually behind the var, you can hover on it, and you can also control click on it to navigate to that type. And Eclipse also provides you one second. Yeah, Eclipse also provides you a lot of quick assist to convert the type of var to its inferred type, and the reverse is also possible here. So after var, let's talk about the Java Platform Module System, which was introduced in Java 9. So first of all, you can easily convert an existing project into a modular project by creating a module.info.java file. So you can see that Eclipse already creates the module info file with some exports and required statements, and these are based on the contents of this project. So after this, you can go to the Java build path dialog, and here you can add libraries to the module path of this project. So let me add the JUnit 5 library to this and click on apply. So now you can modify or you can configure the properties of this module graph by going to the module dependencies tab here. So with this, let me come back to the code. And here, say, let me try to create a test method. Now you see this error that test cannot be resolved to a type. And here you see the quick fixes that Eclipse IDE identifies this and suggests to add the correct required modules to the module info file. So after selecting that, you can see that the error is gone and this required statement has been added to the module info file. Now, if I type exports demo.2, so this is a package which does not exist yet. So here you have a lot of quick fixes using which you can create this non-existing package and you can directly export it from this using a single step. So here, as you can see, it has opened the Java class wizard and the package name is pre-filled in this. You can also create a service implementation directly from the module info file. So for that, let me say provides driver with demo.driver impl. So here you can see that Eclipse IDE is able to identify driver and it is suggesting to import that, and it is also asking you to add the required java.sql module within the module info file. And with that, you have these quick fixes which can easily create the implementation for you. When I do that, you can see the created class is already implementing our driver interface. Now, with this, let's see some tooling features which were added for Lambda expressions and method references, which were introduced in Java 8. So Eclipse IDE provides a lot of quick fixes, quick assists, and cleanups to convert your anonymous classes to Lambda expressions and method references and back. So here to show you some examples. So if here we have this lambda, and if you want to understand the functional method which is being implemented by this, you can just hover on that and you will be able to see that it is implementing compare method and taking two strings and returning an integer. And you can control click on it to navigate to that functional method. Similarly, coming back to the example of Java 8. So if you want, you can also do the same thing on a method reference. Just hover on this operator to see the functional method which is being implemented here. And all the refactorings work with lambda expressions and method references. So just for one example, if you consider this single abstract method that is being implemented by this lambda expression. So let me invoke the int method signature refactoring by pressing Alt Shift C. Here I will add a new parameter int I with the default value of say 1. When I do that, you can see that the lambda expression has been updated to include this new parameter, and the same is done for the single abstract method as well. And also the method call has been updated to add this parameter with the default value of 1. So these were some tooling features for the new Java versions. Now coming to JUnit 5, which is so JUnit 5 is the fundamentally redesigned version of JUnit 4, which is the most popular testing library for Java. And it provides a lot of new cool features, but I will be showing just one or two of them here. So first of all, if you want to create a test class, you can use this quick assist to quickly create a test case for this. And on the next page, you can select the method that you want to test, and it will create the test class along with the test method for you. Then one example of a new feature in JUnit Jupyter is that it allows you to group multiple assertions using this new method, assert all. So with this, all these assertions are executed at first, and then all the failures are reported together at the end. So let me run this as a JUnit test. And once it is run, you can see on the left that there are two test failures. So when I double click on this, you can see all the failures at the same time in this result comparison dialog. And if you want to navigate to the failing source code location, just double click on any entry in the failure trace and you will be able to jump to that. You can also use this button to show the stack trace in the console view. So here you can see all these hyperlinks which can enable you to directly jump to the source code locations. And adding this stack trace in the console view also helps you in copying parts of this stack trace in a convenient manner. So similar to this, there are a lot of tips and tricks, tooling features and keyboard shortcuts which are provided by Eclipse, and learning them can increase your productivity to a great extent. You can learn more about them from the IDE itself by pressing the shortcut Ctrl Shift L, which will list all the keyboard shortcuts for you. And if you press Ctrl Shift L once again, then you will see the keys preference page that opens up, and here you can configure these shortcuts based on your style and based on your own needs. Then in the help menu, you can go to the tips and tricks and go through these documents which are updated regularly. And also on the welcome screen, you can go through the what's new documents of the different components. So with this, let me go back to the slide. You can follow the Twitter account of Eclipse Java IDE along with the hashtag Eclipse Tips to get more such tips and tricks. And in the long run, these small tips and tricks will help you in saving a lot of time. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you found at least something in this talk that can help you in being more productive. So I would be happy to receive any feedback and questions over chat as well as on Twitter. So let me check if there are any questions from on the chat right now. Okay, I don't see any questions. So feel free to connect with me on Twitter and get your queries answered. Thanks a lot for attending the presentation. Thank you and good luck. Bye bye.